Two lifelong Houston sports guys named Adam, talking your teams.
World Series!
Adam Clanton and Adam Wexler are the A-Team.
Back half of the program begins with the 4 o'clock hour each and every day here on the A-Team. It's Adam Wexler and Adam Clanton here with you. We've been talking Colts Texans throughout the week. Our final show of the week is today. We traveled to Indianapolis for some insight on the Colts. James Boyd, who joins us from The Athletic, covers the NFL and the Colts. Morning show host as well, 107.5 The Fan. James, if you'll answer me this quick question as we get started. Was this your final radio show of the week?
It is to get guests sometimes, so I always try to come through for the guys.
I apologize. I heard none of that. The mistake was on our end. Do you have a show Thursday or Friday this week?
Yeah, no show tomorrow or Friday. Get to go home and see the family for a little bit, but I wanted to come through for you guys because I know how it is trying to get guests this time of the week, this time of the year. So always good to help another radio crew out.
I appreciate that. Very good answer. Sorry you had to say it twice, but because I asked you that, I wanted to see if you and your co-host all made your predictions this morning, and by how much did you expect the Colts to beat the Texans by?
Yeah, so I want to say I might have been the only one who picked the Colts this week, but I picked them to win 24-20, and I really chose them because I figured, hey, if you're ever going to show some mental fortitude, it is now. You've lost 2 of the last 3. You got Houston coming in here. We have our little playoff prediction model over at The Athletic where it says if the Colts win this game, they have a 74% chance of winning the AFC South. If they lose this game, they only have a 44% chance of winning the AFC South. So a huge one coming up on Sunday.
It's funny that you mentioned that. I actually referenced the Athletics playoff probabilities in terms of how high the Texans' chances rise to with a victory this week. Rise to 63%. They'd only be 7-5. It obviously plays out the results of the other games, simulates those games. So I assume the expectation is, well, they're good enough to go on the road to beat a team that hasn't lost any games at home. So the idea that they could win more of their remaining games also stands out there. Is that kind of the thinking of you're getting the Texans likely with a return of C.J. Stroud, and it makes it that much more difficult with when you're catching them? They were 3-5. They were 0-3. Now they're the hard-charging Texans?
Absolutely. And I get some of the people around here trying to tell me, oh, well, they've been hot with Davis Mills, and it's not going to be the same with C.J. Stroud. BS. I'm like, C.J. Stroud has cooked you all the last couple of few games. They've matched up against each other. So I think he's going to be a huge addition to that lineup being healthy. And then Nico Collins has been a terror for this team to kind of try to contain over the last few matchups. And then the last thing I'll look at is Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson Jr. This defense, number 2 scoring defense in the NFL, they wreak havoc. And for a Colts offense that has kind of been off kilter, for Daniel Jones, who's dealing with a fibula injury, those are factors you have to consider. So I certainly think that if the Colts, again, are going to show some backbone, the time is now. But also Houston has to feel like this is our opportunity to go out there and take what's ours.
I can't think of anything worse, James, than dealing with a fibula injury and having to play Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter.
Oh, absolutely, man. We were trying to, get some information out of Daniel today, and, of course, he was ironclad on that front. But the weird part about it, you all, is Daniel Jones was not on the injury report ever until last Thursday. So even at the beginning of last week, he was fine, full participant in practice. Thursday, this injury pops up, and we're like, okay, that's a little iffy, that's a little weird. Like, what can you do to a fibula besides crack it or break it? We don't know the extent of the injury at all, but we kind of didn't think too much of it. And then we saw his performance against Kansas City. And a lot of that had to do with the pressure they put on him and him missing some throws. But when he had to run, his gait was noticeably off. So I wonder if that would be a factor moving forward when you face teams like Houston, which they've been very great, with their front seven. And if they bring more pressure, he struggled against the blitz as of late, are you able to get out of it? Can you be mobile, or will you be limited because of the fibula injury?
James, what's it been like there? Because it's always fascinating. The most popular guy on the roster is always the backup quarterback, but that's not how this went down. And I don't think – if you polled 100 NFL followers, diehard casual, what have you, all points in between. No one, I don't think, would have ever predicted that Daniel Jones would have the type of season he's had and that the Colts are having the type of season they've had. But it's not just that. There's layers to this, like the Anthony Richardson situation. What's it been like covering a team like this, and all of a sudden Daniel Jones is leading it to perhaps a division championship?
Well, I'm used to chaos and things not making too much sense. My first year on the beat was 2022 when they hired Jeff Saturday off an ESPN set, and I was thinking, my goodness, this is my welcome to the NFL moment, right? Actually, my first game I ever covered in the NFL was the tie in 2022 between the Texans and the Colts. So I should have known from then it'll get weird. So it's been a weird year from the standpoint of we knew Anthony Richardson was going to be in a QB competition. And when they chose Daniel Jones, I was like, okay, I kind of get it. Anthony struggled a lot. He's had injury history. He's not accurate, all of the above. But Daniel is a guy who was 20 games under 500 with the Giants and was coming off, being kicked out of that franchise and shipped away. And so I thought if they were going to have a winning record, let alone be 8-3, it would be because they're kind of using him as like a game manager. He's, running the ball a little bit, a little RPO action, those types of things, run pass option. But now, at least early on in the year, they were just utilizing him as just a drop back passer, and he was cooking. But as of late, he's come back down to earth. And even then, despite all of the kind of issues that have kind of popped up recently, it still is remarkable. And no, nobody here in Indianapolis would have predicted that he would be 8-3. A lot of people were mad that they didn't stick with Anthony Richardson because he's a number 4 pick a couple of years ago. But now he's like an afterthought. Actually, he's on IR, due to an eye injury. He had a freak accident during warm-ups back in week 6 and hasn't been available since. And no one's even talked about it. And I guess the biggest inflection point I can tell you all is after Daniel Jones had 5 turnovers against the Pittsburgh Steelers, none of us on the beat even asked, are you changing quarterbacks? And that, to me, was the biggest indicator of this guy is their future quarterback, and this guy has earned the title of being QB1.
James Boyd from The Athletic and 107.5 The Fan there in Indianapolis, joining us here on Sports Talk 790. All that being said about Daniel Jones and his excellence this season thus far, is that not still the game plan, though, for any team? Make Daniel Jones beat you by attempting to stop Jonathan Taylor?
Absolutely. Their most important player is Daniel Jones, but their best player, skill position player, is Jonathan Taylor. I always say skill position because the left guard, Quentin Nelson's probably on a Hall of Fame trajectory. He's made the Pro Bowl every year of his career, yada, yada, yada. But JT is having a monster season, and I do think to a certain extent, if you have to ask teams right now, pick your poison, JT or DJ, you're going with Daniel Jones. You're choosing him to kind of prove you wrong in a sense, to kind of rewrite his career. And as of late, that has not been the case. He was playing at a top 5 QB level early in the season. All the stats backed it up, but he's tapered off since then. He's looked like the old Daniel Jones the last few weeks. And so I look at Houston, and they're probably thinking, all we have to do is trust our run defense. It's top 5 in the league so far as average, rushing yards per game they've given up. They've been very stout in that department. How do we stack the box, make sure that JT doesn't beat us with a home run, and how do we force Daniel Jones to beat us? And if that's the case, we'll live with that. And so far, the last couple of outings, most teams have been good with that. They lost 2 of their last 3. They could have lost that game, in Berlin against Atlanta if it weren't for JT going off. So I think Houston is looking at this like, look, don't let JT get, 200 yards, and we should be able to walk in there and win a huge game and then put ourselves in the driver's seat to win the division.
You brought up Nico Collins, and I don't think people realize just how phenomenal he's been against the Colts these last couple of seasons, last 3 games against them, averaging 152 yards receiving. The Colts obviously made a pretty significant move at the deadline. They just haven't seen a whole lot of field time together for different reasons, but having Ward and Moore and Sauce Gardner on the field together, is this something, not by design, but obviously as partial to what could be the result? They need those guys out there to stop guys like Nico Collins.
Oh, absolutely. I'm thinking back to week 4 when their starting cornerback, at least one of them on the outside, was Xavier Howard, and he got barbecued by Puka Nacua, and then he retired a couple days later. And I know he put out a post, and he was talking about, hey, God and family and all that, and no disrespect to him, I was thinking, hey, God might have, came knocking it a few minutes earlier than you expected after you went up against Puka Nacua, who looked like Jesus against you. So, all that in mind, I was thinking, if you go up against Nico Collins, that'll be the same type of matchup, the same type of outcome. So it's certainly a huge upgrade, night and day from where they were earlier in the year. But even then, I still would not match up Sauce or Charvarius Ward one-on-one with Nico. I think that Nico is, when he's healthy, he's one of the best wide receivers in the league. The evidence has backed it up the last few matchups. And they always troll me here, guys, because I'm a big Nico Collins fan, just a fan of the football and how he plays it. He's a physical dude. He's a dog. And I think that he is somebody who can be a game changer. So, yeah, a lot of attention will go his way. And it certainly helps to have Sauce Gardner at your disposal, but do not put him on an island one-on-one because I still think Nico has the upper hand in that regard.
What do you think ultimately, I mean, we're sitting here the day before Thanksgiving. What do you ultimately think happens in the AFC South? And that has to include the stupid Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, a lot of huge division opponents, matchups. The Colts, the last 6 games, 4 of them are against division opponents. They still got 2 games against Houston, 2 games against the Jaguars, the pesky Jaguars, that is. So I would still, again, based off the start of the season, how things have gone so far, put the Colts atop the totem pole and say that they can get it done, win their first division title since 2014. But, boy, they have gotten no help since the last few weeks have kind of unfolded. I mean, they left Berlin a few weeks ago, number 1 seed in the AFC, and since then, literally everything that they needed to happen to help them has not happened. So I'm very curious to see how it shakes out, guys. It makes for a lot of fun matchups coming down the stretch here. And to me, it already feels like it's a playoff atmosphere. And, even though the playoffs, is 6 weeks away, over a month away, it feels like for, Houston, for the Colts, for the Jaguars, if you're trying to get in there and making sure you're not, a wild card and making sure you're not, putting yourself at risk of missing the playoffs entirely, you want to go out there and win the division, and it's very much up for grabs here.
Yes, the 6-5 Texans, the only team remaining on the Colts schedule that's not currently inside the playoff picture. James, we truly appreciate your assistance this afternoon. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving and enjoy the game on Sunday.
Thank you all, guys. Have a good one.
James Boyd joining us here on the A-Team. We will have a little reaction to what he said on the other side here on the A-Team.
The A-Team on Sports Talk 790.